This is Peter Casper. I call the Town of Hebron's Board of Selectmen regular meeting to order for March 21st at the time of 7 o'clock. And we'll move to our Pledge of Allegiance. If you could join me as I recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Tierney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So under additions and changes to the agenda, we did not receive a wet signature at the town clerk's office. So I'm suggesting we take off the recognition and the Planning and Zoning Commission resignation and put it on the next agenda. And also, if Caitlin Hershey joins us, that we give her.
She has joined us.
We've let her speak under good to know and special recognitions. That way it'll give her more than the 3 minutes that's specified on the agenda for public comment.
Everyone in agreement with those changes on the board?
Sure.
Thank you.
I have no issues.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that moves us to public comment, section 4 on our agenda. This section of the agenda is reserved for persons in attendance who wish to briefly address the Board of Selectmen. The board requests that a person's comments be limited to a single period lasting 3 minutes or less. While the board respects the right of the public to provide comment, this time is not intended for open discussion or a board response. Residents who wish to request a dialogue should make arrangements to do so through the town manager's office, or feel free to send an email to me directly. Persons wishing to comment should type comment in the chat box, and your name will be recognized at the appropriate time. So is there any public comment, Donna?
We have Lily Rhodes. Lily, go ahead.
Lily Rhodes, 106 Slocum Road. In the agenda for the Plan of Conservation and Development, I just want to double check. I'm pretty sure Matt Bordeaux already has some proposed changes to the draft that is currently on our town website. But just to double check, the section under the affordable housing vision that identifies the number of units the plan is aiming for currently states 50 units within 5 years, and it should be 75 units within 5 years. I believe Matt may be collecting my concern about that number along with other feedback with the idea of updating them all at once, but just wanted to double check. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment, Donna?
There does not appear to be any at this time, and there will be another opportunity at the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for that. Mr. Tierney, a good to know special recognition. I turn it over to you.
Yes, so hopefully Caitlin's ready to join us, and I think she's going to speak to Earth Day events and talk to the Board of Selectmen regarding that for support.
Hi, everyone. I am here today as the chair of the Green Committee to invite all of you, anyone on this call. We would love to have the Board of Selectmen come. Most of you already have attended these events at some point, but to celebrate Earth Day in Hebron. So this year, we're going to still be doing our townwide curbside cleanup, but as you guys remember, in COVID, we kind of like dispersed it a little bit, and we were doing, everyone did their curbside, and if you wanted to expand it a little bit, you could, but we are actually going to be gathering at RAM again. So Dan remembers the glory days when we were all collecting there and we had a good group going. But so we're going to be starting at RAM on Saturday, April 20th. That is going to be at 10 a.m. to kick off the townwide curbside cleanup. We're probably going to go until about 12, maybe 1-ish. Sometimes people like to go a little bit later, so that's totally fine too. And then from there, we're going to be replanting our town hall pollinator garden at around 12. So the details of all of this, we have a lovely dumpster that's going to be provided from Public Works. We're going to be partnering with AHM this year. The environmental club's going to be getting involved. We're trying to bring back some of those larger event days that we used to have pre-COVID. So far it's shaping up to to be that, but we're crossing our fingers because the weather is always a wild card in all of these plans this time of year. So anyways, it's April 20th at 10 a.m. We would love if anyone, on this call could join, but also, the board. I know, a lot of you have come out in years past. Dan has physically been bloodied at certain points, pulling things out of brush and ditches and all that stuff. And it's really been a, wonderful team effort when you guys are able to join. So one, I'm here to notify you guys of the event, but two, to also invite everyone, and we're really excited to see what this year brings.
Thank you very much, Caitlin. Thank you for all that you do, and appreciate you taking the time to come out and inform the public of this important event. Mr. Larson?
Yes, I was just wondering, is there any special equipment that you would like to see or any special things that people could bring in the cleanup efforts?
So we always say the biggest thing is to wear high visibility clothing. There's not other stuff that we really need to bring because we'll provide bags and typically we have some gloves available as well. But really your hands are the biggest thing. We have been graciously given the Nickel Nip Fund by the town. So we're able to, purchase bags and kind of get all of that basic stuff that we need. But other than that, it's really just manpower. I mean, as you know, it's just lugging the garbage bags around and trying to, collect as much as we can off the roadside. But hands are the biggest thing.
Okay. Perfect.
Tiffany, anything? Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was going to say, any other questions? I feel like you guys know this event by now. I'm on here every year preaching about this.
Keith or Tiffany, anything for Caitlin? Good. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for spreading the word, and we'll look forward to hopefully some significant attendance to support you in this effort. So thank you so much.
Guys so much. Yes, please. And if you know of anyone, who has any hot spots in town or anything like that too, please shoot us an email because we are always looking for those big areas with, a deluge of trash on them. There seem to be a lot of them these days.
For all your efforts.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much.
All right. Have a good night. Okay, thank you. Anything else, Mr. Tierney, in this section of good to know or special recognition that you'd like to add?
Not at this time.
Thank you. That moves us to section 6, which is appointments and resignations. We already noted that we're not going to be addressing 6B tonight. That'll be moved to the next agenda. We have information in our packet, and I'm sure the board's had a chance to read it. So at this juncture, I would ask Tiffany, would you like to read the motion associated with the poet laureate appointment? And then we can obviously open it up for board discussion.
Certainly. Move that in accordance with Town Code Chapter 98, Section 98-4C, and as recommended by the Douglas Library of Hebron Board of Trustees, the Hebron Board of Selectmen appoint Larry Zimmerman as Town Poet Laureate for a one-year term, March 31st, 2025.
Thank you. Motion's been read. Andy, is there any, I know you provided the correspondence, and is there any context you'd like to provide before we open it up for board discussion relative to this appointment?
No, this was kind of been lingering for a while. We kind of lost touch with it during the COVID crisis. But Larry's had expressed interest and had come to the selectmen's meeting when we were meeting in person and expressed his interest. He's a longtime resident, and I think the library is looking to honor his request.
Okay. Okay, open it up for board discussion. Mr. Larson, I see your microphone open. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Sure. This was a position that came to fruition quite a few years ago, and I know Larry has been very active with different books and things in town, and I think it would be a great fit.
Thank you. Keith or Tiffany, anything you wish to add? No? Keith, good. Okay. Well, based on that, I will move forward with moving this to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay, or please note if you wish to abstain. Keith?
Keith Pettit, aye.
Thank you. Tiffany?
Tiffany Teely, aye.
Thank you, Tiffany. Dan?
Dan Larson, I.
Peter Casper, aye. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And thank you, Larry. Okay, as noted, we're moving on from B, will be next meeting. So that moves us to our town manager's report. I turn it back over to Andy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So under the recent activities, of course, it's, we're keep adjusting the budget numbers. We've gotten some new numbers. We had some good news with our insurance carrier, with our workers' comp and our LAP insurance that affected all three entities. So we should see some adjustments there. Under recent activities, we're going to be starting union negotiations with the Parks and Recs Commission for their employees, and also the Public Works employees. We're working, we'll get to this next agenda item shortly, but we're working with the department heads on the ARPA request, consistently, trying to get those things done and get those things moving. Working with the town planner on the projects. Hopefully, as you go around town, you can see we started the sidewalks on Wall Street, and we are getting all the permits and stuff in place for the intersection at 316 and Route 66 improvements. I'd be miffed if I didn't report on the Maple Fest. It went very well, so I think we should give kudos to the town center project for a job well done. I've got to say, in the 13 years that I've been up in the town manager's office, whether it be interim or full-time, this was the first year I didn't get any phone calls or complaints. So if that's any indicator how smooth it went, it clearly took a load off of my weekend, and my wife was very happy. We have early voting starting Tuesday the 26th at the town hall. If you need more information, you can go to the town clerk's website, or the town's website under the town clerk. It'll start on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and there's hours on Saturday. They're going to be from 10 a.m. to 6. And that would be for the president's primary is on April 2nd. So just a point of information, something new that we're working on, and we're going to work the kinks out of that. So we're going to have that voting, early voting at the town hall. So hopefully everything goes smoothly. We're working on it. The registers are working on it, along with the clerks. And that's all I had. It's pretty much budget season as usual, as you all know.
Thank you, Andy. So we'll move right along to section 8 of the agenda, which is old business. And as Andy just referenced, the first item is definitely something that I think we want to spend a little bit of time on, which is the American Rescue Plan State and Local Recovery Funds update, ARPA's update. And Andy, do you want to cover a couple of these items, and then we'll sort of allow you to provide some context, and then we'll open it up, obviously, for questions and all that. But
yeah, let me jump in. We continue to monitor this and update as we've been requested. Hopefully, we're fulfilling that obligation. American Rescue Plan State and Local Recovery Funds update. Enclosed is an updated ARPA status report. There's interest has been added, and the total unappropriated balance is $353,151. Outstanding project status is currently being reviewed. It is important to note that obligation funds means the purchase order, agreement, or contract obligation of the project funding must be made by December 31st, 2024. If there are projects that completions may not be possible due to regulatory processes or simple lack of time, the designation dollars should be considered for reallocation and obligations before the end of the year. We do not want to lose any of the ARPA funds. There are several projects that no determination has yet been made by the Selectmen. The Selectmen should review and determine if they will consider them to be funded allocations, or if to be denied. Do so now or take them off of the list. The town manager is recommending funding Horton House improvements at $81,600, the police department tasers at $16,000, anyone else, through ARPA, which would remove these amounts from the proposed 24-25 fiscal year budget. Consideration should also be given to funding the Hebron Center signage project. So just quickly before I open it up, is we want to make sure that obligation, you have to have a purchase order or a contract in place. So there's some things that have to go through planning and zoning. Regulatory wise, we want to make sure that gets done in a timely fashion. what I would suggest is we talk about this tonight and then keep it on the agenda for the next Board of Selectmen's meeting. And I would look to you guys, but I would strongly suggest that we have some sort of deadline like July to have these projects, somewhat moving forward or determined, so we give new projects enough time for consideration so they can make it and get a contract in if we're not going to be able to meet some of the other obligations. I'd hate to lose, any money whatsoever due to the fact that we missed the deadline. So with that, I'll open it up.
Yeah, I think we all have a lot here, so let's sort of unpack this, as they say. I think, well, you know what? I'll just open it up because I know everyone has some thoughts on this. So I will. Keith, would you like to start with questions and thoughts on this topic? And I'll just move up to the other selectmen as well after Keith.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. We need to move up our timeline because, waiting until the last minute to make any of these decisions, as we've all had interactions with government before, and we know that, when things come down to the end of the line, there's always something that comes up and then you end up missing a deadline and you lose the funds. So I don't want to be in that position at all. I agree with Andy that if we can't get contracts and purchase orders, going by, I think July is an excellent starting point, that we need to pivot and move those funds somewhere else. I also think there's a couple of things where, when we weren't necessarily feeling a sense of urgency, we said, well, let's kind of bundle these things together and do it, simultaneously with other things. I think we're kind of getting to the point where we need to kind of drop that mentality and just start like going for broke on all these. Because, number one here, the security measures for town buildings, that's one thing I personally would love to see is electronic swipe cards for entry, because it puts a digital footprint on any entrance into a town facility. You don't have to, worry about lost keys or who might have made a copy of a key. And, if 17 people have a copy of a key, you don't have to have camera footage or other things to tell which one of them used their key. Pairing that with the facilities study, I mean, I don't know, but I feel like I've heard the term facilities study about 75,000 times in the last 6 months. I don't know where it stands, but it seems to be a bottleneck. And I'd like to see, just again, right off the top, let's bust out of that bottleneck and not wait for the facilities study and just, we know we want this done, let's get it done. I don't know. And especially with us having a surplus of funds, what is the facilities study going to tell us? Oh, you shouldn't do this building. I mean, do the building anyways. I mean,
Yeah, we've moved on. That's a great thing. We've already moved on from the facility study in that area. We've already met just recently this week with a new person. So you're spot on.
Yeah, but I know there's more bottlenecks than just the facility study, and I understand that we have to wait for permitting and other things, but if we see any of those where projects are kind of, I don't want to see us bundling projects together and one project get held back because something else hit a snag. We need, if something hits a snag, it needs to be left behind. I know that's going to lead to a little bit of inefficiency, and I know in the government we try not to do that because it wastes money, but we're also sitting on top of this huge amount that's still not allocated. So I think in this case, in wanting to get things done expeditiously, a little bit of inefficiency or expending money where we might have saved a buck is warranted. I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Tiffany?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd agree with my colleague Keith. I think certainly, I think I've also expressed on occasion that it feels like certain projects are just not moving forward quickly enough, right? That we have significant amounts of dollars tied up with particular projects. Understanding that some of those projects do require going through planning and zoning, right? Which I recognize is a hurdle and is part of our process, and we need to honor that process. I guess what would be helpful for me in future conversations is to really understand, what projects are truly stuck in the most limbo in terms of, for example, not to pick on one of these projects, but the dog park. I mean, it doesn't seem like we have a location. It doesn't seem like we're anywhere close to finding a location. So is that something that can come out and go in for something else? And so if we have to start making these decisions, I think we need more information as to which projects, as to Keith's point, are stuck in the most limbo. If planning and zoning meets in the next couple of weeks, can we have updates on where the lights at vets are, or other projects that require that kind of approval? So I think that information will be helpful, because then we can say, okay, if these projects are going to have to come out because they're not meeting the July deadline, what can we do instead? So I think that would be helpful moving forward.
Thank you, Tiffany. Dan?
I also agree. There's those types of projects, and I definitely agree with Andy that these planning and zoning should be getting these projects by July so that they can be discussed. Any subsequent planning requests back to the people, so they can get the information so that permits can be issued. Lighting, things like that require engineering work. I'm not sure where some of these projects are. Another one would be the Peters House accessibility, the parking, and all of that. So some of that it would be from Matt to find out just where that project is. And at some point in time, we just need to move ahead. You want input from the different boards and commissions, but at the same time, we need to move forward these projects and for the good of the town. So I am in full agreement that we need to move forward with these things and push these people, or it's going to get dropped and we'll move on to another project. Also, again, I like Andy's idea of the moving of the tasers and some of that stuff, which gets again off the town budget rolls, which helps to lower the dollar requests for the taxpayers. And it's stuff that does fit within the ARPA scope. So I'm definitely in favor of that also.
So I agree. Thank you. I agree with the idea of putting some timelines and getting some responses in place. So what I'm thinking about is, I think we should put some sort of, the July makes sense for so here's where we are, here's the go forward position, but maybe we also need in a shorter time frame a response from anybody who is sort of out there, and to use the words already in limbo, say, listen, in the next 30 days, I need at least an updated response. This has been out here for 6 months or 8 months or a year. Is this moving forward? What are you doing? So sort of an update. And then we need, maybe that's an idea of, let's get a shorter time frame. So Andy has some, hey, the board's come back and said, we need to at least get an update on this by this date. And, Andy, I'll look to you to sort of identify the ones that you can push that forward on. Articulate that, if everyone agrees, a July 1st deadline where we need definitive documentation regarding next steps so we can assess if it's even viable. And then for those that are, hey, we need another month, but it looks like it's moving forward. Okay, but and then ultimately, Keith's point, I think even though the documentation is the end of December, I think we ought to have a hard stop well before that. to his point. And I don't know if we want to put a specific date out, like sort of start, like give me an update in the next 60 days. We need this by July 1st, and then we're going to be done by a certain date, or the funds will get reallocated. So maybe at least the first 2 dates we can maybe come to a decision on tonight to give him that direction. And then maybe as the year progresses, we can say, all right, look, we better make this October 1st because, or whatever it is, but maybe the first 2 dates. You guys think that's something we can think about right now to at least give him that and get an update? Go ahead, Dan.
Excuse me. I would say, thinking along those lines, I would suggest that we have some sort of answers by our first meeting in June. That way, if we do need to carry it through to the second meeting in June, that would still allow for that July 1st deadline, if you will, for plans to go forward or whatever. And or if it required something special, give us time. One of the issues we always have to think about with July, August is people on vacation. So I would say they need to have information to us by June, the first meeting in June. Would be my thought.
Not bad. It gets us through the referendum, and it gets us, maybe that's good timing there. Andy, is like the first meeting in June, we need updates and details, or if we don't have them, we'll need to make a decision to move on to something else. We won't, if it's, I haven't gotten to it and it's June 1st, then you know what, I'm sorry, we have to reallocate the funds. Is that reasonable? Or, I'm sorry, June, whatever the first meeting in June is. Tiffany and Keith,
So to echo what Tiffany's just requesting, we're planning on doing that. So a couple of these projects, like the lights, the pickleball courts, all that stuff's going to the first meeting of planning and zoning, either the end of this month or the very first of the next month. Matt's got that stuff on there, the pickleball courts, the final, the concept, and then I know they're going to planning and zoning about the lights. I'm not sure if the parking lot's on there yet, Danny, for St. Peter's, but I have no problem. As we get that information and updates, we'll supply that as Tiffany requested. That should be a little bit easier. Donna just met with the person on the security cameras for the town hall. Unfortunately, I was out with COVID, so I could not attend that meeting. But we'll have some updated stuff on that, and I don't think we're going to have a problem getting that moving forward, and along with some of these other projects that are moving forward. The playscape at Vets Park is 90% done. It's just been a little muddy to get in there to do the surface underneath it, but the thing is erected, and the kids are anxious to get out there and play on it. So we're working with the schools to hopefully, we do have that purchase, so we just got to get planning and zoning approval there. The skateboard park, we have a conceptual plan being drawn up. That's in the same footprint as the old skateboard park, so that shouldn't take very much approval from planning and zoning. We're going to stick that in front of them as well. So some of the things should start moving, so I should have plenty of updates by that first meeting in June.
Okay, so this is sort of a two-part section. So we'll leave it on as old business with no, always a need to discuss because we're sort of coming down that home stretch. So we'll leave this on as old business. The Andy's suggestion on those two items. So I turn it over to the board. Keith, you want to start with the request to consider paying for some of these items out of ARPA, the Horton House improvements and the police equipment?
Yeah, I'm fine with moving these items, into the ARPA scope because we have, a significant amount of stuff I don't want to say excess funds, but we have a significant amount of funds that we have to get through, and it keeps looking harder and harder. Like I understand we're supposed to be mindful of people's dollars. Like I was saying before, we try to be as efficient as possible, but even some of the things that are on the projects, like the CERT vehicle, we're looking at getting a refurbished one. When it comes down to the line, if we have to, then we need to get a brand new one, even if it's a much a significant more cost. At least it would be on contract and we wouldn't lose the funds. You know what I mean? So like these are some of the pivots that we're going to have to think about at the upcoming meetings. But as far as those two items that are suggested for tonight's meeting, yeah, I'm in favor of moving on those right away.
Tiffany, thank you. Tiffany?
So I will not support the use of ARPA funds to purchase weapons for the police department. To me personally, that's just not in alignment with what I think American Rescue Plan dollars should be used for. But I would support moving the Horton House improvements through, because I think, as you know, as Keith noted, that we do have some funds there. But I think the purchase of equipment for the police department needs to stay within their budget. And I just have a problem using ARPA funds to purchase weapons. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Dan.
I am in support of both the Horton House improvements for the 81.6 and the tasers, as they are a non-lethal form of protection for our police officers. And I support the $16,081 to be gone through the ARPA funds.
Okay. Thank you. I also would support the equipment for the police, and I have no issue with the Horton House improvements. That's a critical item, so I don't have any issue with that. Both those items would have been at least allowed from a legal perspective to be included within ARPA. We have a difference of opinion, so would it make sense to make two motions? Because we need to make a motion on this, correct?
Yep.
Or do you want to do it in one? Andy?
You can do it
Make a motion?
in both projects. I bet, if somebody doesn't want to support one of them, you might want to do it separately.
Okay. Well, I just didn't know if you wanted to break it up. All right. So, Dan, would you like to make a motion then on that item, please?
Sure. I would make a motion that we approve for use of ARPA funds the Horton House improvements at $81,600. If we do it as separate motions, that would be motion one.
No, I'm sorry. No, Judge. Andy said just do it together. It's fine.
Oh, okay.
No, actually, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. Andy actually said that we should think about splitting it, and I would.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had a little audio hiccup.
I do support the Horton House improvements.
Got
Thank
it.
you.
All right. I'm sorry. I had a little audio connection. I thought he said to combine them. So I apologize for that confusion. So go ahead, Dan. I apologize. You want to just reread that first motion? I
Sure.
appreciate that.
I'll make a motion that the Board of Selectmen approve the use of ARPA funding for the funding of the Horton House improvements at $81,600.
Okay. Thank you. That motion has been read. Based on the previous discussion, I will call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay, or please note if you wish to abstain. Keith?
Keith Pettit, aye.
Thank you. Tiffany?
Tiffany Teely, aye.
Thank you. Dan?
Dan Larson, aye.
Peter Casper, aye. That motion passes unanimously. Keith, would you be so kind as to read the second component, the second motion relative to the police equipment?
Yep. I would move that the Board of Selectmen approve funding the purchase of police department tasers in the dollar amount of $16,081 from the ARPA funds.
Motion's been read. Again, I've heard discussion, so I will move the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay, or please confirm if you wish to abstain. Keith?
Keith Pettit, aye.
Thank you. Tiffany?
Tiffany Teely, no.
Thank you. Dan?
Dan Larson, aye.
And Peter Casper, aye. The motion passes 3 aye, 1 nay. Thank you very much. Okay. So, Andy, is there anything else on the ARPA items that you wish to discuss before we move on to 8B?
No, I think as long as everybody's agreeable to leave it on the agenda and we'll supply those updates I spoke to, I think that should guide us a little bit better as we get closer to that date.
Okay, thank you. Really good discussion. Thank you so much. All right, that moves us to 8B, which is the Department of Public Works Action Committee update. And we are subcommittee of communication is working to finalize the initial phase of our FAQs and items to be added to the town website, which information's over to Andy, and we're sort of vetting through those now. Still on target to have those to the town to add by the end of the month. So still on target there. And as I have more information, I will be sure to share it. Are there any questions? Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, 8C is to discuss the town manager evaluation. We do have an executive session, and that will be discussed during that time. Any other old business from the board or Andy? Anybody have anything that should be under old business that has not already been covered? Nope. Okay, great. All right, Mr. Tierney, that moves us to 9, which is new business. If I could turn it over to you.
Yes, so number 9 is the plan of conservation development. We've been working on this quite a bit. We had Mike O'Leary as a consultant, met with a lot of boards, commissions, and workshops with the Planning and Zoning Commission. As you had heard earlier from Lillian Rhodes, we've been putting those up on the town's webpage for review. There will be a public hearing, as you can see in the town planner memo, and that is scheduled. The Planning and Zoning Commission has tentatively scheduled a public hearing on adoption for May 14th, 2024. Minor revisions and amendments, including a cover page, acknowledgement, and appendixes will be included to complete the final copy. So just as a formality, we want to make sure the Board of Selectmen is okay with that moving forward with that public hearing, or do they wish, Matt really wasn't prepared to do a presentation to the board itself, but if that's something you guys are requesting, that's something I could ask him to do.
Comments from the board. Dan?
Myself, I've read through a lot of it. I have a lot of questions, a lot of concerns on a lot of it. To probably sum it up, because I've got pages of comments as I wrote it up, and rather than boring everybody, I just feel like they've gotten way too far into minutia that really isn't their area. You know, they talk about finding other avenues instead of using salt treatment for the roads. Some of that should be, you know, directed to our public works department to make sure that what they are doing meets the safety that we need to meet for our citizens. There's a lot of discussion about clear cutting and trying to prohibit clear cutting, but I really feel that that's information that should be done with information from foresters. You know, for one thing, old growth forests are important, but new growth forests is also where a lot of your smaller wildlife species live. They need the brush. They need the briar patches. If the forest gets too overgrown and there's no protection for the smaller wildlife, then you lose the wildlife. They're talking about lighting, and you know, we were already talking about putting lighting at the ball fields, and they seem to be stating that they don't want to see lighting in town except where absolutely necessary. So there's just a lot of areas that I'm just concerned with, that they're really, I don't want to necessarily say overstepping their bounds, but I think they potentially could be tying our hands on a lot of other development and or use of properties. So I just don't support it. I'm set.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry again. I think my computer's having a little hiccup here. I apologize. So, Andy, from a timing perspective, it sounds like we need to have more discussion, at least from one of the board members. And I see a motion to endorse the whole plan. And so I'm also hearing that we're really endorsing the process of the public hearing and sort of the next step.
Right,
So
it's the process. And
yeah, so I'm thinking that the motion is okay. Go ahead, sorry.
I'm sorry, Dan or any of the Board of Selectmen members, at any time, if you have questions like that, we would honor that. You could send those in to the commission prior to a public hearing. And Dan, I think we could probably get a lot of those answers to you. I don't think you're the only one that has, some of those sentiments on some issues. I'm not sure that everybody aligns with your list, but there's been comments that, the plan of conservation and development is supposed to be a guide. It's not supposed to be a Bible of what you can and can't do, because if it's too restrictive, it's harmful for economic development. And Mike was pretty good about including a lot of the stuff. He was pretty seasoned, but some of the commission members are really trying to take this opportunity to inject their vision of what they would like to see, and we got to make sure it supports the whole town versus just some special needs groups. So I think there's room for wiggle room on that, but I think if you get questions to us like you did with the budget and the fire chief, I can get your responses back to that.
So in terms of this motion, it sounds like we should be tabling the motion and allowing those questions to be answered. Does that sound appropriate, or are you looking for something else here, Andy? Because I'm jumping in front of Tiffany and Keith, but I'm already hearing that we need to maybe have some more discussion on these items relative to putting that motion forward at this time. Does anybody disagree with that, Keith or Tiffany?
No, I don't disagree with it at all. Sorry, Tiffany, I jumped ahead of you, but you did it to me last meeting, so.
I did do it to you last meeting, so go for it.
I have a lot of the same, well, all right, not exactly the same concerns as Dan, but in the same mindset. I've read through most of it, not all of it. And again, I wasn't getting into the minutia like we heard public comment today about 50 versus 75. And I didn't get down into the weeds that much. But I agree that there are things that pop up like, farmland preservation, which, yes, I understand that working farmland is something that should be preserved, and we should encourage agricultural use of town lands and promote agriculture in Hebron. But I know that there's also kind of some of that preservation of agricultural land as agricultural land, which is something, I'm kind of still trying to absorb what exactly that means from our perspective as selectmen, to Dan's point, economic and community development. And also I am 100% on board with Dan's feelings. Connecticut, anyone who has moved to Connecticut from another state, when we say old growth forests, they laugh at us. Connecticut does not have any old growth forest. I hate to break it to people, but I understand that we want to preserve these open spaces and to have these, nature pathways and things like that. But, I think we've been very aggressive in preserving town land. We are one of the top towns in the state as far as percentage of land preserved. And, I just think that kind of like on the economic side, when we want to have a soft landing and not, spend a bunch of money and then find out that we've overspent ourselves, I don't want to just have this never ending preservation of land that goes on until, when 100% of town land is preserved, there won't be anybody here to enjoy it because it will no longer be a town. So what is the sweet spot where we stop? And sometimes I don't understand the interpretation of that in this plan. And so I have a lot of questions as well. And I 100% agree with the chair. I'm not in favor of the current motion as it's printed. The word endorse, I do not endorse this plan in any way, because that keeps getting thrown back in our face by certain, members of the public that say, well, the town agreed to this and now your hands are tied. Just because somebody agreed to it, this is, to Andy's point, this is, a vision, but it's not a Bible and it's not a guideline that we have to follow. And saying that I endorse it, I have no problem moving it to a town vote, but as the motion stands, the word endorse, I would say no. Go ahead, Tiffany.
Me?
Sorry.
I think that a lot of small towns in Connecticut are going to have to grapple with the real reality of how much land do you have, how much can you preserve, and how much do you need to keep to develop? And by develop, I don't mean let's get a strip mall, right? But the reality is we need more taxpayers in town, right? And so how do we do that in a balanced way and with a nuanced approach? And frankly, I share some of Keith's concerns. And this was something that I was getting at in our recent budget meeting. What is the end goal of land preservation? Is there a percentage we're trying to hit? And I don't think it's satisfactory to say the town will decide when it's enough. I think there does have to be an end goal to how much we are committing to effectively taking off of the tax rolls, right? To taking out of the hands of what can we do with this land that is consistent with Hebron's character while also planning for its future. So I also would not be willing to endorse the plan here tonight because I do have a concern that I think we tend to be incredibly preservation focused. And I think that there are a lot of positives to be had from that. But I'm not sure I'm getting the urgency that I want to see from this plan in terms of we have specific statutory affordable housing goals we need to hit. I mean, the state is requiring us to do that. And I didn't really see that as prevalent as much as I would like to. And I also just have a concern with how much is enough. And so I would also have some similar questions along that same vein. I think, and I acknowledge and I respect that people have a certain vision of what they want this town to be. And I think our job as select people is to support that vision, but we also have to plan for its future. And so I would just agree with what's been said. I wouldn't be willing to endorse this tonight, but certainly, I mean, if we had to move it tonight, absolutely to a public hearing, I mean, I'd be happy to do that. Thank you.
Okay, and I've set off my camera again. I'm having a little audio glitch, so hopefully you can hear me fine. So somebody give me a thumbs up. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I just shut it off because I'm thinking that might help a little bit with my my connectivity tonight. So Andy, I mean, I'm hearing a consistent theme here. We have some questions. We want to support the process moving forward, but we clearly have some questions that we might need to get to you for some additional information. And so we, the motion as presented doesn't, I think at this juncture, have support, but we clearly don't want to get in the way of the process of moving this forward. So do you need us to, would it be prudent to just table this or to revise the motion to address support of the process? Do we need to do that relative to bringing it to a public hearing, as Tiffany mentioned?
Yeah, let's refer to Matt's letter in the third paragraph under the general statute section. Halfway down, it says a legislative body or board of selectmen, as the case may be, may hold one or more public hearings on the plan and shall endorse or reject such entire plans or parts thereof or amend, and may submit comments and recommended changes to the commission. The commission may render a decision on the plan without the report of such body or board. So up in the top paragraph, I'm sorry, the same paragraph, the third paragraph, at least 65 days prior to the public hearing on adoption, the commission shall submit a copy of such plan or part thereof to the amended therefore review and comment to the legislative body, or in this case of a municipality for which the legislative body of the municipality is a town meeting or representative town meeting to be board of selectmen. So Donna, I don't have the calendar of that 65 days. So if they don't act to approve the public hearing, at least Matt has to do for the 65 days tonight, is that going to put it in jeopardy?
So that 65 days referred to when when they had to forward it to the Board of Selectmen. So
Okay.
that,
We met that. deadline.
and we did meet that deadline. And then that third paragraph, the selectmen can endorse it or they can make recommendations to it. The selectmen can also hold their own public hearing. But I think that the May public hearing that Matt is referring to is going to go forward regardless, because
Right.
it has to, because this has to be approved by, I believe it's June 14th.
You're right. So, as
So
I
the public
stated
hearing,
earlier,
public hearing is been scheduled. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, I'm sorry, Andy.
yeah, as I stated earlier, you could, as Danny clearly has recommendations, and it sounds like, Keith does too. I would say we table it till the next meeting and get those recommendations to my office, and we'll get those to, Matt, the planner, the consultant, and the commission.
Everyone in agreement with tabling it and moving questions forward to Andy?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So we'll do that. That'll move to the next agenda, and we will not take action on that proposed motion as presented. Thank you.
Okay.
That'll move us to 9B, approve revised job description for the financial administrator. Anything here, Andy, you wish to add or provide?
No,
context?
it's pretty much cut and dry, attached to the proposed revised job description. We went through with the new finance director and myself, and my current financial administrator has resigned. And the job description has been reviewed and updated by Lori Granado, finance director, in preparation of the recruitment and a selection process. And there's
Okay, I'll make a motion that move that the Hebron Board of Selectmen approve the revised financial administrator job description as presented or amended, and then I'll turn it over to board discussion. Anybody? Dan, I see your microphone open. Anything you wish to add? No.
No, I am assuming that our town staff has done an incredible job as always. So I would support their recommendations.
Tiffany, anything on the job description changes that you wish to discuss or amend?
Nope. No, all set. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Keith. Sorry. Keith, go ahead.
I like them, so I'm all for approving it.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I don't have anything. So based on that, I'll move forward to a board vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay, or please note if you wish to abstain. Keith?
Keith Bennett, aye.
Thank you, Tiffany.
Tiffany Teely, aye.
Thank you, Tiffany. Dan?
Dan Larson, aye.
Thank you, Dan. Peter Casper, aye. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, 9C is a draft agenda for April 4th, 2024 meeting. So as always, take a look at that, bring any forward to the town, to Donna and to Andy, any changes you wish to make to that agenda. Mr. Tierney, first, any other new business, 9D, any other new business you wish to bring before the board?
no, sir.
Okay, anyone on the board wish to add new business that hasn't been already discussed? Seeing none, thank you so much. That moves us to item 10, which is our consent agenda. Consent agenda items are considered to be routine in nature, which the board may not need to discuss individually and may be voted on as a group. Any board member who wishes to discuss a particular item in this section may request the chair to remove it for later discussion and a separate vote if necessary. So we have the approval of minutes for March 5th, 2024 regular meeting budget workshop, and March 7th, our regular meeting. And then we have tax refunds listed. Does anybody on the board wish to separate any of these items out of the consent agenda? Tiffany, did you?
No.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I saw the mic open. I didn't know if you had some. Okay. Seeing, no. Oh, go ahead, Dan.
I'm just trying to get, I don't know if I'm missing something. March 5th, it's talking about the Board of Education budget as presented and all of that. That wasn't the 5th. I wasn't there. I had my continuing ed stuff. That was our last part. I just want to verify that date is correct. It's talking about Ram's budget, and so
Dan, I think that was in reference. I think that's the entirety of Andy's written memo to us, which included that information
Okay.
about. I think it was just meant as an overview, but I recognize that copy as the copy that Andy had written out for us.
Okay.
He can confirm it, but I'm almost positive that's literally word for word from the memo that he presented.
Thank you.
Yes, okay. Okay, so thank you, Dan, for that question. And you're comfortable based on that explanation to move forward, Dan?
Sure. I have to abstain because I wasn't there.
Oh, okay. Okay. So with that, we'll move forward for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay, or if you wish to abstain, please note that as well. Keith?
Keith Pettit, aye.
Thank you, Tiffany.
Tiffany Teely, aye.
Thank you, Mr. Larson.
Dan Larson abstained.
Peter Casper, aye. Motion carries 3 aye, 1 abstention. Thank you so much. Moving to liaison reports, HMU services. That's my area. I have nothing to add this evening. Tiffany, I turn it over to you and the Hebron Board of Ed.
Sure. So the Board of Ed is actually having a budget workshop tonight, and so they're continuing their process of going line by line with their budget to make adjustments. I also wanted to mention that Invention Convention just happened, and there were a lot of terrific inventors. So thank you to everyone who participated. I heard it was a great event, and that's what I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Larson, Board of Finance.
Nothing at this time.
Thank you. Keith, Land Acquisition.
Has not met.
Thank you. And Rand Board of Ed, Claudia will, I'm sure, update us at our next meeting. Thank you so much. Moves us to section 12, which is public comment. Donna, is there anyone that's asking to participate in public comment at this time?
There's nothing at this time.
Okay. So procedurally at this point, we move to section 13, which is our executive session. So the public section of this meeting will end. We'll move into executive session. Please note that when executive session is over, we will reopen the meeting if any action is required. And at that juncture, if anyone in the public is still on the call, they're welcome, obviously, to hear that. But the meeting does come back online after the executive session. For those that haven't been joined us for executive session in the past or with this on the agenda, I don't know how long executive session will take. So, if you're able to stay on, great. If not, thank you for joining us. And that's the process. So I'll ask at this point, Donna, to
Peter?
We need a motion to go into executive session.
yes,
And you also have to
we
invite
have to
in
make a
motion, and you also have to invite in, if you're going to have Donna in there running the meeting, and then if you're going to have me in there for a portion of it,
Okay.
you would have to, in that motion, invite us in, even if it's just for a portion. I'm not sure.
So
what
make a
you're
motion
planning.
now that we move into. Oh, I didn't remember the motion part. So yes, but the plan would be Donna needs to continue to run the meeting. We will, as the board, only go through the discussion of the personnel matter noted. And then at the completion of that, we will ask Donna to notify you to come back in to the meeting, at which point we will be discussing the outcome of that evaluation with you. So yes. So then a motion that we move into executive session and that Donna continues to manage the session while we're in executive session. She will not participate in the executive session, but will allow the session to remain open, turn over presentation to the board chair, presenter rights to the board chair, and that we will ask Andy Tierney to leave, and then he will be invited in at the conclusion of the executive session to conclude the meeting. Does that cover it, Mr. Tierney?
Yes. Yeah, thank you.
So motion has been read. I will move the question and ask for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay, or if you wish to abstain. Keith?
Keith Pettit, aye.
Thank you, Tiffany.
Tiffany Teely, aye.
Thank you, Dan.
Dan Larson, aye.
Thank you, Peter Casper. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you so much.